So your discussion board post for this week will fit into next week's as well. All right, so whenever I type out week 3 discussion board, it'll say based on last week's, do another layer of questions basically. So this week you are basically you want to pick a current topic in American society that needs a gospel influence. Okay, so we're kind of really thinking of, kind of did the Batman vs Superman trend. Now, as we work through the course, you will work more towards local church ministry practice, more specifically. This is really just kind of getting you used to the concept. So as you start thinking about this, you'll be able to, by the time you're done with this class, my goal is that you can exegete scripture and you can exegete culture well. Okay, so in exegeting scripture, taking from that, so how do we do what should our ecclesiology look like in this particular setting? So that's going to be part of analyzing scripture. What does the Bible say about the church, about this kind of ministry and whatnot? So I want you to be able to do both. So we're going to kind of start with analyzing some cultural trends, get you thinking through those type of things to help you kind of practice through formulating the questions. But as we move through the semester, toward the end, we're going to start getting into talking about contextualized church planting, contextualized evangelism, contextualized preaching. Those things, your discussion boards, you'll be using the Helix and relating them very particularly to local church practice. So you see, we're going to kind of ease our way into it. And so today, the first thing we're going to do for the first, we'll probably spend about 20 minutes on this or so, 20, 25 minutes. I want you to take a current topic that's happening right now in society. Okay, so this is very open, very broad. Keep it to North American. So you know you discuss things like ISIS, but don't discuss ISIS what they're doing in Syria, or what the Syrians are doing to their own refugees. I would want you to discuss what America is doing to refugees. So it's just pick a topic. It can be anything. It can even be something like a cultural text, that like how I did the Batman vs Superman. A current song. I just want you to pick a topic today that needs a gospel influence. So I put a few examples like Black Lives Matter, gay marriage, gun control laws, etc. Just some general things happening. And I want you to you're going to type out a sentence or two, explain the topic and why it needs the gospel influence. So why does it need spiritual spiritual formation? And then you're going to simply list I call it level 1 question. All right. So I'm going to put up here, as you guys start doing, I'm going to put up I kind of put up, I made a little slide thing with the Helix that kind of has the general, here's where to start to kind of question. So you can kind of look at that and you'll think of a level 1 question. So when I did the Batman thing, my very first question was not how has the figure of Batman evolved through the movies. My first level questions were, what does the Bible say about heroes? What is society saying about heroes? That first level question, you're asking them, because then when you move to the next level, you step it up a little bit. You get a little bit more specific with your questions, and then based on those answers, it gives you the next layer of questions. So we're going to build that each week. So this one, I'm not looking for an in-depth analysis of the topic. I'm looking for what are the general questions you need to start with. And then next week, we're going to do layer 2 on the same topic. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into that. Go into your hit the discussion board link there, and I'm going to and you'll read it through first. Very simple. I'm looking for 5 pieces. Explanation of the topic, followed by 4 questions related to each in the Helix. So let me go ahead and put up the Helix questions here so you can see that. And Charlie, at any time, feel free to, oh, that's new. There we go. Charlie, feel free to jump in if you need to, ask any questions or anything like that. So I wonder if you guys can see that okay? Might be a little bit small. So I put the star there by theological reflection because we already start there. But what does Scripture say about the topic? So if you're doing, let's just say you're doing gay marriage, you can just find a simple passage or general idea. Say, the Bible is clear that marriage is da-da-da. Something like that. Cultural analysis. What will exegeting the people and text of the context reveal related to the topic?
So are we asking a question or are we answering these?
You're asking questions. Yeah, you're going to answer them eventually.
So,
so you're formulating the questions today.
So like the issue of social justice, is that too broad?
You'd want to hit what is a specific instance of that. Social justice, the homeless population in Winston-Salem, something like that. Get more specific. with a social justice. But I mean, it's open ended. It could be, you know, teens dropping out of high school. I mean, you know, anything like that. So just pick something that's of interest to you. Charlie's good to go. Yeah, you are just thinking through the question.
Or even healthcare, is that an issue?
Yeah. It could be things related to Obamacare, healthcare. Yeah,
So
that'd be a good enough one to start with. Yeah.
So subject like issue of healthcare, or just healthcare.
Yeah, I would say the issue of you want to look at is healthcare being fairly done.
Is healthcare fair?
Yeah. You know, are we being fair in the healthcare system with the new, you know, something like that? You want to start kind of general. But the blog for your in Blackboard, the blog is going to be used for your research paper, your project at the end. So I'm going to pull up the syllabus just so I can kind of read straight from it. So you're going to, you know, we're going to be practicing through the grid. Now you're also going to be learning other content. Like next week we're talking about Christ and culture. How should we view? Is it, you know? Anyways, it's a whole other topic. We're going to get into that. Your reading is going to be. Your reading is heavy. There's no lecture, particularly next week. So next class period, we're just going to be probably given some time to do the reading and that sort of thing as well. But the lecture is going to come in. I'm just going to kind of make sure you understand the concept of Christ and culture, which is going to be a very, very simple conversation. But your contextualization research project, you're going to use the missional helix to research, write, and present on a topic related to gospel mission in North American culture. So I left that very open-ended because I wanted you to see, you know, so Matt, for you, it's easy to kind of say, like at this point where you're talking about homosexuality. Okay, well, you can analyze it and see what culture is saying, so that you can, you know, if you're are ever at a coffee shop and you happen to dialogue with a lesbian and she's asking you, are you one of those right-wing conservative Bible thumpers who hates gays and thinks we're all going to hell? I was asked that question when I started to work at. Yeah, all right, you're kicked out of class. So I was asked that question when I started working at Starbucks. He asked me, "Are you one of those crazy Bible thumper Christian guys who thinks all gay people are going to hell because we're gay?" I said, "No, I think you're going to hell if you don't know Jesus, whether or not if you're gay." He respected that answer, and he and I are good friends now. So it's funny. I told him he's going to. I've actually told 2 lost people in the last couple of years that I thought they were going to go to hell. Because they asked me and I was blunt with them. And they're like, okay, they're still friends. They still want to hang out. One guy texted me just the other day. He's like, hey, I'm back in town. Let's go play darts or something. So I'm like, I told you like 3 times you're going to hell, and he just laughed because he doesn't believe in hell, so it doesn't matter to him. He thinks I'm a nerd, Christian nerd nut, and I think he's just lost. So we have more conversations. So anyways, for this paper, I want to leave it a little open ended because homosexuality, you can run it through the helix to try to understand how do I contextualize it for evangelism. If I, like this would have been helpful for me years ago when I was working at Starbucks to think through it. Or what if you're a youth pastor and one of your students comes up and says, you know what, one of my best friends at school is gay, instead of 15, and he is struggling because he's getting picked on or whatnot, and I love him, and I'm his only friend now. He's just been ostracized. How can I be his friend when I believe that what he's doing is wrong? So that was a pastoral way to look at it. Or you're in a congregation and your community, maybe it's a small rural community, see if you get it, close but not good enough. What if you're in a small rural community like the one in Kentucky that we saw this past year where the county clerk says, I'm a Christian, I'm not doing these things. So for that local community, of course they hit national level. What if on your local community, how are you as a pastor in the pulpit Sunday going to address it? So you see how there's many ways to think of it through the helix. So your spiritual formation question is key because you're asking this, and think about this for your paper too. You want to be asking, how do I want to analyze homosexuality in North America so I can lead my congregation in navigating X?
I'll tell you what I do to address it. I wouldn't address it. I just preach the Bible.
You can't do
That's-
that. No, I'm just kidding.
That's the crazy thing. Like whenever these big things blow up, like pastors always feel the need or the obligation to go up there and address it from the pulpit. I'm like,
If you preach systematically and expositionally through the text, you'll hit all those issues.
yeah,
You'll
just
hit all
preach
of
the Bible.
you'll hit if you preach the Bible faithfully and you just walk through it, you will hit every issue that we are talking about today in culture. That's how relevant Scripture is. So, anyways, when it comes to thinking about your research paper, I want you to think more along those specific lines. You're going to be researching your thesis to your paper is going to be related to spiritual formation. Okay, how can I help my teens understand how to share the gospel with their gay friends at school? So you're going to be a little more specific. You're talking about teens in school and that sort of thing, not just what does gay America look like. You're not. I don't want you to go that broad. I want you to see how it's going to help spiritual formation. Remember, that's the whole point of the Helix, is to guide in spiritual formation. That's why we do contextualization. We do it so we can help people be spiritually transformed. So, your blog post for this week is simply, I want you to kind of start fleshing out your general research topic and why you want to do it. Okay? So, it doesn't have to be the healthcare or the gay thing. Yeah, see, what the discussion board is practice. It can be. You may get into the healthcare, like, man, this is really big implications because the local church I'm serving has a high percentage of people who are completely dependent on free healthcare. So how are we as a church ministering to them? So that could be a really big deal for your church, but it may not be for Maddie's church.
I know a lot of pastors
You know?
who don't even have health insurance because they can't afford it.
Yeah,
as
exactly.
pastors.
Exactly.
That's
So-
why you see like some denominations starting to do their own health care.
Yeah.
Like the
Yep.
Presbyterian Church and the Wesleyan Church both have started like a kind of fund for their pastors.
Right. I mean, it's definitely applicable because we're talking about contextualization in North American mission. So your paper is going to be focused on what are we analyzing so it can help us in the Great Commission for spiritual formation. So what you're doing now, these are more practice runs. So you can do the same topic, or we can do a different topic. So let's take maybe about 7 or 8 minutes. I want you to kind of just think through a topic and be able to articulate. And to a degree, you're not running it through any levels of the Helix yet. That's going to come later as you work through your research project. But just start thinking of something that's of interest to you that would help in the church's mission in North America. Okay, so start thinking through what you think a good topic would be, or it's related to disciple making, evangelism, preaching, church planning, church revitalization, denominational affiliations. I mean, your possibilities are endless. We're talking about ecclesiology here, so you got a lot of things. It could even be. I mean, this was a case study when I took the contextualization class in seminary, and it was a tribe in Africa on what type of liquid should they use for communion, because there was no such thing as wine or grape juice. Like this is, I think it was in Malawi or Kenya. It was the Maasai tribe. You've heard of Maasai's.
Bless you.
And so they use this special mix of milk and blood, cow blood, and they drank it. It was like this, kind of like this, the mixture. I can't remember what it was called, but the missionaries' question was, should we encourage them to use this blood beverage as the communion drink instead of the grape juice? Is that okay? So they had to go through biblical theological reflection, cultural analysis. So we had to do it as a class too, and come with a response of saying yes or no. We will or we will not let them use this. And our conclusion was that we wouldn't, because it was so much tied to their animistic spirit worship stuff. Like drinking the blood of an animal, it was actually an act of worship to the animal in a sense. So we analyzed and say, no, we want to find, there happened to be another beverage there that had a different meaning to it, and we said, let's use that beverage instead. So it's communion. Now, your paper could even deal as specifically as something like the Lord's Supper and baptism. But it's going to have to relate to something a little bit bigger. You're going to want to analyze something. One of my classmates did cohabitation, because the issue in his church is a young couple been visiting his church and they want to join. They're unmarried and they're living together. So is he going to let them join or not? That's the research paper. You see how it relates to local church and him understand. So he had to go and study what does cohabitation look like in American society before he can step in and start dialoguing with them. So you see, so think of issues in your church that have come up before with leadership and with different things. I'll give you one last one, then I'll let you guys think. This is not really a funny one, but it's very interesting. But this is one that did truly happen. Professor in class was sharing this. There was a church that a person came to the church who was transgender. They had gone through a sex change. And so this person had gone from being a male to a female. So this female now started coming to the church, becomes a Christian. Now, truly, this person was a male. And so through that, the person became a Christian and wanted to become a deacon in the church. And so they started going back through the change of thinking through, well, should I now get a reverse sex change so that I can be a deacon at the church? And so there's other questions like, well, they had what we would say homosexual sex because it was a guy who, once the gender was changed, was sleeping with guys. So there's that kind of issue. And in part of their discipleship, they were, repenting of that kind of thing, of whatnot. But should they get a sex change in order to become a deacon at the church? Should they go back to being a male? So what do you do with that?
Wow.
And that was the question the professor said. You guys want to get into pastoral ministry? That's going to happen. That kind of stuff's going to happen. You're going to have someone come up and you're going to be like, I don't know what to do. And so that's why we run it through the helix and understand. That's why it's so important to understand culture and history alongside of theology.
Knowing me, I just be like,
would you like to be a parking lot greeter?
we have a great ladies ministry.
But the person had, I can't remember, it's been years, but the person had some really great qualifications and skills to be a really strong deacon in the church. But for lack of a better phrase, he lacked the male parts in that sense. So should he have that reversed, or I don't even know how you can reverse that. I don't care to know. Another one I saw, there's a big thing on Tinder. Not Tinder? One of those kind of dating social media sites is basically just hookup social media things. One of them is now allowing couples to choose another person together for threesomes and that sort of thing. And so it used to be just one person. Now you and your girlfriend or wife can get on and have a joint profile, combine kind of two separate profiles to look for another to join as a third. And so culture is quickly fading that direction. So anyways, you got a person in your church who says, my wife and I have an open marriage, and we want to join your church. Okay. Well, don't become sleeping with my wife. So anyways, so think through issues like that. So take some time now, flesh out some stuff, and then let's discuss them before you post them. Okay, that way you have a little better idea. What do you got yours? All right. Think through a little bit more. Charlie, you think through